So I should confess from the outset I'm no expert in coffee, no expert in wine, no sensory expert in anything really, and yet we work a lot in the lab in Oxford, in the psychology department, on the factors that affect our experience of wine, of coffee, of beer, of spirits, of orange juice. It could be. We're kind of agnostic about the materials we work with. But today I want to tell you a bit about the kind of work that we do, mostly funded by industry, and I'll give you a few examples. We have people in the lab who've worked with Nespresso, who we just heard about. We've worked with Starbucks, with Lilani, Twinings, Kraft, Mars, and beyond. And even with local baristas we come across who have intuitions about what the factors that affect the taste of coffee, and we turn that into experiments to see just how much of an impact that everything else, everything outside the glass or the cup, has on the experience. So I want to bring together kind of the evidence that we've come across on the sensory factors that affect that cup of coffee you see there. And if we were that way inclined, we could stick somebody in a brain scanner and try and see whereabouts kind of the reward value and the enjoyment of a great cup of coffee comes from. And it would be this little bit you see lighted up there between the eyes and a little bit back, the orbitofrontal cortex, or the OFC, kind of the reward center of the brain that you'll often see in sort of newspaper articles about neuromarketing. And if one looks a little bit more closely at what's going in that reward center of the brain, then you find it's a hub for kind of integrating sensations, integrating what we taste with what we smell, combining that perhaps with the sound of the crema bursting in the glass, certainly with textural cues in the mouth, and with visual cues as well. So all our sensory experience of coffee comes together here and in other places. And what we're experts in Oxford is trying to understand the rules that combine the senses. And it's our opinion, and it's the opinion of many of those that we work with and go to conferences together with, that the senses aren't separate. They might be separate on the outside. I can see, I can hear, I can feel, I can taste, I can smell. I have separate organs for each of those senses. And yet in here, in the brain, all those things come together. They come together all the time. And it's only going to be by knowing how the brain combines the senses that we can really understand perception in the glass, in the car, wherever we might be studying things. And so what we do in our research is try and figure out how changing what somebody feels can change what they smell. By changing what they smell, we can change what they see. And by changing what they see, we can change what they taste. All the senses come together in sometimes surprising ways that psychology and neuroscience are starting to unravel, and it's an excitement and challenge for us to try and take those neuroscience insights and think about how they can apply to selling better coffee, say. So I'm going to show you, and we all think, maybe you can fool people in the labs, but I wouldn't be fooled. I can keep my senses separate. I can see stuff, I can smell things, and I can taste them, and I can keep those sensations apart. That's not the case, and to try and demonstrate that, I could pick one of a whole host of illusions, but I'll just pick the one that you're going to see in a second, of a guy speaking to you. And what I want you to do is think about what the person on the left of the screen is saying. What is the information that is going into your ears? And you should hear something like bar, bar, bar. Good. Now look at the face on the right of the screen and think about what do you hear going in your ears. Suddenly, it's different. Suddenly, now your brain is telling you the person is saying da or tha. And now whenever you look to the left, you'll hear one sound going in your ears. Look to the right and it changes. It's always the same sound. Your brain is combining what it sees and what it hears and changing your experience. If you close your eyes, you can tell the real sound is bar. But once you open your eyes again and look at the face on the right, you cannot stop your brain from combining, from integrating stuff. So even though you know you're being fooled, and I've been watching this video for 20 years now, I'm fooled as much as the rest of you. Our brain combines the senses and only gives us access on the screen or in the glass to the results of that integration. And if you know something about how that integration takes place, maybe you are in a better place. So, the senses, they integrate in interesting ways. Let's look at how each of the senses can contribute to the coffee tasting experience and how some of these interactions play out in the glass. I guess we have to start in the mouth because everyone talks about the taste of coffee, and we all get confused, as we heard this morning, between taste and flavor. Taste being technically just sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, and so on, all detected by the tongue. But all the interesting, the nutty, the roasted flavors, in fact, coming from our nose, but being ventriloquized into the mouth. So we experience it here, but we detect it up here, a whole lot of psychology in there, in this oral referral. And some people like their coffee strong, some people like it weak. Why is that? Why do coffee preferences differ between individuals? There will be a number of factors behind that, partly what your mother was eating when she was pregnant with you in the womb. We're learning our taste preferences from the very first days. And beyond that, probably the state of our tongue also has some impact on our preference for bitter-tasting foods and when in life we started to appreciate coffee. So if you have a tongue like the one that you see on the top of the screen here with flabby taste buds, widely distributed, you won't be able to taste certain things. You're a non-taster. Others who have a tongue like the one you see on the bottom, stained blue with a bit of food dye, have far more taste buds, and they'll be sensitive. They're super tasters who are very sensitive to certain bitter compounds. And if you don't know which you are, what sort of tongue you have, you could go and buy some food dye or come to the discussion forum tomorrow, and I have an easier way of showing in which taste world you live and why that may matter to you. So we live in different taste worlds, and that's part of the explanation for maybe why things taste different. But taste is so much more than just what's going on your tongue. We've done work with designers and material scientists on spoons. Could be coffee spoons. And you think, why? There's so much innovation going on in cuisine these days, but why does everyone eat with the same stainless steel or silver knife, fork, and spoon? Go back 100, 200 years. People had all sorts of materials, bone and porcelain and all sorts of wood for their spoons. Nowadays, there's a far more limited range, and we've been working with the material scientists to create spoons. Copper, gold, zinc, and stainless steel, I think, there in front of you. And get people to taste foods from a spoon, as for some of those coffee drinkers who like their spoon and move it around to get the crema on the spoon. If you're one of those kind of coffee drinkers, then you may get taste also from the spoon. And we find that when people eat or drink the same foods from a teaspoon or coffee spoon, as we change the material, even if you can't see that material because your eyes are closed, it conveys a taste to that which you are tasting. Zinc and copper, for example, will make foods taste a little bit more bitter. So taste is not just what's happening on the tongue, but each time you stick that spoon in your mouth, you're looking at some number of million molecules, and they can convey some taste properties to your experience. Beyond that, I guess there's a smell, the aroma of coffee, and that is probably the most important sense when it comes to driving flavor experiences. I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but you'll see the number in the press and in various flavor books that maybe 80 to 95% of our flavor experience, and this may be more so true for coffee than other things, really comes from the nose. And here there are all sorts of challenges about why it is that for most foods, when we sniff them orthonasally on the plate or in the glass, they may smell wonderful, they may set up expectations of a great tasting experience to come, and when we actually taste that product, our orthonasal impression is the same as the retronasal flavor we get as we breathe out on eating. Coffee, I guess, is one of the unusual ones where things are a little bit different, and there are many consumers out there who would say, yes, this coffee has such a great smell, I love it, and then I taste it, and it's kind of disappointing. It rarely, I think, goes the other way, and there are questions here. What is it about coffee? Is it something about the extraction of certain volatiles in the mouth? I'm not sure of the answer, but it's kind of an interesting foodstuffs for that very reason. So we work a little on the smell, the taste, their combination, and the psychology behind the two. But we also work far beyond that, and other factors that influence the experience of drinking coffee. And this study that's still under review, I should say, was inspired by a talk with a barista in Melbourne, who said he'd noticed that his customers, clients would have different responses to the lattes he made depending on the cup in which he served them. His intuition was that when the latte was served from the white mug, it tasted more bitter, his customers would say. In fact, we've been putting that intuition to the test, And we do find here the 3 different mugs in which we served hot lattes to our participants. And we can see from the intensity of the flavor bars shown at the top, not quite matching up one-to-one, but the color tells you all you need to know, that indeed serving the hot latte from the white mug did give rise to higher flavor intensity ratings when exactly the same drink was served from the clear glass or from the blue mug. Small-scale study thus far, but it starts to make you think there's more to flavor than what's in the coffee mug or glass. All these external, extrinsic factors can have some impact. And James might say, I can remember the last time I spoke to James a few years ago, and he sat me down after my talk and said, yes, this is all very interesting and impressive stuff, but would it make a real step change in people's experience if you had 2 cups side by side? Would they say, that one tastes different from the other? Some of these effects are like that. This one, perhaps not. They're kind of incremental changes and effects and differences, but you add them all up, and you can really change people's experience. And we might go from the color of the cup, or from the mug, or if we're working with a restaurant like El Bulli in Spain, we might change the color of the plate. It will change the taste. A lot of research growing there about plateware and glassware and its impact. And go from there to the color of the environment. There are studies out suggesting that if you take people in a winery on the Rhine and change the color of the ambient lighting from red to blue to green to white, it changes their experience of the wine in the black tasting glass. It changes how much they'd be willing to pay. And specifically in the world of coffee, not looking at the hue, but at the overall brightness of the lighting, nice work from Gal and colleagues in California, showing that those who like their coffee stronger will tend to drink more of the stuff under bright ambient lighting conditions. Those who like their coffee weaker will in fact drink more if they're drinking it in a dimmer environment, as you see on the left. So things that shouldn't matter to our experience, to our perception, to our preferences, and to our drinking behavior, in fact do.